Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm your host Adam Binney, joined by Alan Ruff and Tam McManus, the gaffer. Tam, he's missing in action again, but we can't actually say where he is because he's away on a secret mission. Do you know where he is?
I know where he is. He's away doing something important for the show, so unfortunately we're landing with you today with a new Barnet.
We'll not get into that because you're Barnet, but I've seen you with a gel in the toilet just before this. Ruffy, I think you had a little bit of a trouble with your dressers.
I just fell asleep. When I woke up, he'd just taken advantage of me.
Literally, I've never seen higher sideburns in my life. They're up there.
You think it makes me look younger, no?
I think it does. No. I think you look a lot younger.
Well, do I look 70 now?
No, you're not 70, Ruffy. No chance. Right, anyway, we've got plenty of important stuff to get through, but before we do that, we have, as always, our quiz question. In light of the news today that Sam Allardyce has taken over at Leeds, it's prompted me to ask, how many Premier League clubs has he managed? Any guesses, lads? We'll reveal the answer at the end, as always.
8.
I'll go 7.
7, 8. Viewers, get involved as well. Let us know in the comments who you think he has managed. If you can try and have a stab in the dark as well at naming those clubs, then feel free to do so, and we'll read out some of the answers at the very end. But today, massive news in Scotland as the PFA Scotland nominees for Player of the Year were announced for the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So instead of us doing the dirty work, we spent our fantastic reporters Kerry Pollock and Blair Malloy out to the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre. Kerry, first of all, can you just reveal to us who the nominees are for the Scottish Championship for this season, please?
The Championship, we have Deepo Akinyemi from Ayr United, who is the league top goal scorer at the minute with 20 league goals under his belt. Dundee's Paul McMullen, who feels his side are definitely a Premiership team as they come up to Friday night's league decider. And Grant Savoury from Queen's Park. Also from Queen's Park we have Dom Thomas, who also backs himself to make the difference on Friday nights.
Yeah, so we've got Akinyemi, Thomas, Savoury, McMullen, and they're guys that you like this season, Tam. They've had a good season so far.
Yeah, I think all 4 of them. I think Ruffy's a bit disappointed there's no Partick Thistle players there, but
were you expecting that?
Yeah, I could name you 4 Partick Thistle players this season who played particularly well, who'd have been in there. Doherty, Kevin Holt, Bannigan, Brian Graham has had a good season as well. I think the people at the club will be really disappointed that there isn't a nominee in that 4.
But it's the players that vote for it. It's not us. It's nothing to do with anybody, fans or anything like that. It's the players, so you've got to give them. They're playing against these guys every week. So Akinyemi for me is probably the one for me who's, I think, put United on his shoulders, and they really got them in the playoffs. 20 plus goals this season. I don't know who the next top goal scorer is, but certainly his goals have got them in the top 4 or 5. Yeah,
perfect. With your connections to Partick Thistle, and Tam, of course, played in the Championship before. We'll get a more in-depth discussion on who you think should get that one later. But I'm sure everyone will be wanting to know who is nominated from League 1 and League 2. So, Kerry, can you shed some light on that for us, please?
So starting with League 1, we have Kyle Benedictus from Dunfermline Athletic, a teammate of his, Matthew Todd, Callum Gallagher from Ayr Unions, and Rory Payton from Queen of the South. Who now? Go with that now. Stirling Albion's Dale Carrick, who's netted 25 goals this season. Tommy Goss, who's just 4 goals away from 30 goals this time round. Craig Slater from Forfar Athletic, and Charlie Riley from Albion Rovers, who despite his team being down the bottom end of the table has been heavily linked with Dundee this season.
The Championship, lads, again, I said we'll go more in depth about all the nominations and who we think should win that later in the show. But in the Championship, some players there that will be involved in possibly the biggest game of the season for both teams on Friday. Ruffy, Dundee, Queen's Park, massive fixture. Looking forward to watching that one Friday.
Yeah, I think everybody will. I think both of them have had a fantastic season. Queen's Park have just dropped off the pace a wee bit, but Dundee haven't been it's consistent. It's going to be a big night for a lot of players. Some of the players I would think in the Dundee team have probably been through this kind of pressure game. I don't think there'll be many Queen's Park boys, so it'll be how they respond. But Queen's Park will be saying to themselves, look, we've got home advantage here. I think if you saw Dundee last Friday night, they weren't particularly good. So for me, it's on the night. It's who wins that one. I don't think Queen's Park have got many goals in them just now, so I think it'll be really, really tight. But I would expect maybe Dundee to come through that.
Kerry, I think you were speaking to some of the boys today that are going to be playing in that match on Friday. Was there much chat about the big game, or is everyone just solely focused on the award nominations for this afternoon?
Well, Adam, as you can imagine, we quickly hurried over the questions about the awards and whatnot and got to Friday night's game. We spoke to Paul McMullen. Dundee, he's the only nomination from his side, but he believes his team are a Premiership side. They were there last season. He believes they can get up there again. The confidence is high amongst the squad. From Queen's Park, we spoke to Dom Thomas. Thomas, frustrated, his side couldn't get it over the line quicker than the Friday night. And I said to him, it's great for us to watch all the neutrals, but he said it's a little bit nervy in the squad at the minute, but he believes he can certainly make the difference come Friday night. But he also says he'll take anything, an own goal, any player to get his goal in the back of the net. And Grant Savoury, he's only 21. He says his team are really looking forward to Friday night, and he believes this is the type of games that you get involved in football for.
Tam, Queen's Park, Dundee on Friday. I mean, everyone's buzzing about it. It's Wednesday already. We're talking about this game and building it up just before we get to the Premiership fixtures and the opening weekend of the split. At the weekend, how do you see it going?
Listen, I think I have to fancy Dundee. I think the fact of the matter is they only need a point. I think Queen's Park went 1-0 up against Morton at the weekend, and it was in their own hands. You know, even a draw would have done them if they'd won that game. I think both have, got very, very nervy in the last couple of weeks. I think Dundee have drawn the last 3 games. If Dundee would have beat Cove last week, they'd have won the league. So I think they'll go back to a big travelling support, and I think they should win the league. If Dundee don't win the league, it's one of the biggest collapses that I've seen in a long time, because they should have had this league tied up 2 or 3 weeks ago. And if they get beat, they're going to have picked up 3 points from the last 4 games. When probably a win would have done it, or a win and a draw. So the pressure, I think, is on Dundee on Friday night. I think Queen's Park are underdogs, as they have been all season, but you would expect Dundee to go down there and at least get a point.
Tam, that's what, 4:07 or something now. Kerry will be absolutely raging. We've kept her this late. Is there anything you would like to ask her before we let her go? Because I'm sure she'll be charging this time to Peter right now.
I don't know. It looks as if she's in a very good place. I suppose she's probably looked at a few of the cars. I know there's wee minis up there, new minis there over at Arnold Clark.
Knowing Kerry as we do, she'll probably be in there trying to get a deal. She'll go in there and try and say, I'll work with PLZ, can I get a wee deal in a car? And all that. So she'll be shying us in there trying to get a new car.
Kerry, is this true? Have you managed to wangle a discount yet for a new car? I know you've got a history for it with that company.
Well, Adam, it's important to have friends in all industries, not just in the journalism broadcast world, as you'll know yourself.
Dramatic way of saying she's ran straight in there and asked for 20% off her next car. Listen, you've got to absolutely love it. Fair play. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to do the same, but I don't think they would have quite said the same to me. Unfortunately, right. Back to the football then. This weekend we're speaking about this match at the weekend, but the big news today is, of course, Player of the Year nominations. So I'm going to go through each division with you, lads, and ask for who you think should win it. So we'll start with the Championship and get a graphic on screen for us just now. Of course, Akinyemi, Dom Thomas, Grant Savoury, Paul McMullen, all up for the award. Tam, if you were still a player in the Championship just now, who would you be voting for?
I'd probably go for Akinyemi as an ex-striker myself. I think that his goals tally has really carried Ayr United, as I said earlier, up to the top of that league. They've got a massive game on Friday. I think they're away to Inverness. I think if they win that, they're in the playoffs. So I would go for Akinyemi, but I like Dom Thomas. I've always liked him. I think he's a very talented player. I think he's been excellent for Queen's Park this season as well. Paul McMullen's a good player, but for me, Akinyemi, I think, would stand out just simply because he's goals.
Ruffy, you can't say Graham Graham. It's got to be one of the 4 up there.
No, I would have said Ross Dockery, but he's not there. So I'll have to go for Akinyemi as well. I think he's been tremendous all season, and as Tam's already touched on, Ayr United have relied on him quite a lot, to get goals, to take them to where they are. It'd be a shame if they miss out in the playoffs. I think they've been one of the teams that we never expected to be up there, but he's been the main reason. Dom Thomas has been about, hasn't he, Tom? He's been at a few clubs, but he seems to have found a club with a wee bit of form. But no, for me, I would be going Akinyemi.
Yeah, just mentioned Dom Thomas there. We can actually hear from him just now, of course, as a result of his nomination. He was speaking to the media this afternoon, so Kerry and Blair stopped to have a little chat with Tom.
Yeah, he's been great. And straight from speaking to the manager before I signed, kind of pre-season and that, you get a good feel off him, especially a man with his experience and ability. And ultimately he knows how to get the best out of players, but even on the field, off the field, he really takes a care of all his players. And I think the way we've played this season has just been down to him. He's gave us that freedom, kind of took the leash off and go and express yourself. The way he sees football and the way I see football is very similar, so it's just a great match. But he's been great with a lot of boys. I think in our team, you look at it, it's a young team and you maybe not recognise a lot of the names, but as soon as we get in pre-season, I quickly realised how good this team was and believed that we could have success.
This weekend, of course, Dom Thomas up against Paul McMullen, a fellow nominee who was also speaking to Kerry and Blair at Arnold Clark today.
We're pretty confident. We've been on a good unbeaten run. We've not won as many in the last few as what we would have liked to have, but there's a good feeling having not been beaten. We were 3-1 down to Morton with 10 minutes to go and you come back, and that kind of thing sticks with you and brings the group a wee bit closer together and whatever, coming through things like that. So we're looking forward to it. We'll prepare as normal and hopefully everything goes our way.
We can take a look at the League One nominees now as well on screen. Tam and Raphael, I'll ask you exactly the same. Who are you going for? Callum Gallagher, Kyle Benedictus, Matthew Todd or Rory Payton? Tam?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Kyle Benedictus. I think that when you see Dunfermline's defensive record this season, I think he's been a massive part of that captain. I think he's already won that league with Dunfermline. So I think he's a terrific centre half, and I think as a skipper of the club, you know, to go and win the league, and they won it in a canter. And I think they only lost one game or something, 2 games all season, so they've been excellent, and I think I would give it to Kyle Benedictus.
Ruffy?
We keep agreeing with each other here.
Is that just because we had McPake last week? You're trying to be nice and pick all these boys?
He's another player, you know, that's been about as well. He's been at a few clubs and he seems to have found...
Dundee won the league with Dundee.
No, he's been about, and was he not at Race Rovers for a wee while?
Yeah, Race Rovers.
And then, obviously, the league winners, you know, it's got to be somebody for there, you know. But these boys really don't know the pressure they're under to win it. With Peter having to interview them at the end, they better start practicing.
It's not Peter. Peter's not doing the interviews.
He's not.
He's delegated it to me and Kerry. Honestly,
on the night,
Peter will he'll be at the front hosting the event and slaughtering them as he always does, but after he's delegated it to Kerry.
So when the winner comes on the stage, you'll be interviewed?
No, so when they're on the stage, Peter talks to them, but then after it...
Oh, I wouldn't.
This is all... but this is... We'll need to keep some of that top secret, because there's some red carpet stuff going on that we can't talk about. Myself and Kerry will be...
God, I was panicking then. I thought you were doing the main...
No, not a chance. Listen, I've got 30 or 40 years to catch up to Peter to get to that. Listen, as you said, Kyle Benedictus getting your votes for League One Player of the Season. Kyle was also speaking to our reporters out at Arnold Clark today, speaking about next season and his hopes for the Championship.
I don't obviously want to say I think it's too early, but as you can see by the Championship this year, I think anything's possible. It's so tight, and I think that it'll be no different for us next year. We'll go and we'll just do what we've done this year, just start so hard work, togetherness in the team, on and off the pitch, and who knows where it can take you. And
finally, we'll go to the League Two Player of the Year. Nominees from PFA Scotland. So Charlie Riley, Craig Slater, Dale Carrick, and Tommy Goss. Tom.
Difficult one, this one actually. Charlie Riley's been flying for Albion Rovers, and I think they've been poor this season. And his goals, you know, I think they're sitting bottom of the league at the minute. You know, hopefully he can keep them in the division, because I think if Albion Rovers do drop out, you know, you might not see them again for a while. Tommy Goss, I think Kerry was saying he scored 26 goals, you know, for an Athletic, which is fantastic. But for me, probably Dale Carrick. I think Dale Carrick is the one for me, and Ruffy's nodding. I think Dale Carrick scored 20 odd goals for Stirling Albion, and they've won the league. So I think when you're looking at teams that have won the league, and I think I would go for Dale Carrick.
I'm going to guess by your reaction.
I'm the same.
3 for 3.
With Dan Young in last week, he was raving about him. You know, saying he's a big player this year, and I think again, you know, the Championship winners generally get, you know, that nomination. You know, and with him scoring so many goals, you know, I would expect him to get it as well.
Any chance for Charlie Riley?
Ian McCall brought Charlie Riley right out of the blue a couple of years ago, and Ian thought he was definitely one for the future. Unfortunately, he never broke into the Partick Thistle team. and he was let go at the end of the season, but ever since then, as Tom said, he's been scoring goals for fun, and you would say in a poor side, so Dundee have seen something in him, so they're going to take him, and good luck to the boy. I mean, he's got something. I think he just has to tune into what he's got to be a professional footballer.
Tam, young player, seems to be single-handedly dragging Albion Rovers through this relegation mire. They might still go down, but does that maybe heighten his chances, the fact that he scored so many goals despite the fact the rest of his team have been so poor this season?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult to score as the next striker myself. If you're playing a team that's flying at the top of the league, then you're getting plenty of chances. I think if you're playing at a team that's bottom of the league and you're struggling every week, for him to score 20 odd goals for them is fantastic. As Ruffy said, he had a wee taste at Partick Thistle. Maybe he just needed to go and play somewhere every week. He's done that at Albion Rovers. He's played every week. He scored a lot of goals, and he looks as if he's going to earn himself a move back up, potentially to Dundee. So fair play to him. He's no went in a huff. He's went down to there. He's grafted hard. He's worked hard, and he's got to sell a move. So I think he will be definitely in the shake-up.
Yeah, just on that, we could hear from Charlie Riley as well, also speaking this afternoon, and I think he was also asked about this match on Friday because it could be one of his new clubs, Dundee.
I'll watch it, and we'll just have to see what's obviously the outcome will be. But as you say, there's been a lot of noise the past couple of weeks, but I've just tried to block it out and just keep doing my thing and obviously concentrate on Albion Rovers and keep them in the league.
We will have later this week the Premiership nominees will come out, the Young Player of the Year nominees, as well as the Young Women's Player of the Year, Women's Player of the Year, Manager of the Year. Plenty to look forward to. Nominations aren't out yet, but for Premiership Player of the Year, Ruffy, you get any early indications as to
well,
who you think deserves it?
I've had 3 Celtic players the last third of the season: Hatate, Callum McGregor and Kyogo up front. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. It's the 4th one I can't really pin anything on. We were talking about Van Veen. He scored a lot of goals. He might be in that one, because if you look through the teams, although Aberdeen have went on a wee bit of a run, they've had most of the season's been poor. There hasn't been any particular player who stood out. Obviously Duke, laterally has come to the fore. So I think it would be between Duke and Van Veen for the 4th nomination.
Pam, would you agree? 3 Celtic players and
but I'm going to go for 3 different ones. I'm going to go for Carter Vickers, McGregor and Kyogo. I'm going to leave Hatate out. I think he's been excellent this season, but I think he's been injured for a wee while. He's missed a few games, so I'm going to go for those 3, and I'm going to go for Van Veen as the 4th. I agree with Ruffy, it could be Duke. There's still, there's a few games left, but obviously the nominations are already in, so I think when players are hot at that moment, when the nominations go in, that it could be Duke or Van Veen, but I would expect one of them to be in the running, because to score 20 odd goals for Motherwell, and particularly for Van Veen, I think that's a great achievement. Ruffy, for the young player, you wanted to go for Mark O'Hara, who's 28.
He's a bit of time next season.
I'd love somebody to tell me what. Obviously, they think the age group's 21 or something.
21 and under, I think. Yeah.
I'd love to know.
No, it's is it not? It's 22 and under.
I'd love to know what players are we talking about? Because I mean, you don't generally know what age players.
So just now,
what young players are we talking? Give me some 4 or 5 names that were.
There's not been a lot this season.
Tillman, Abada, O'Reilly.
There's not been a lot this season. That's
I think Duke's 23. Will just miss out.
Yeah, but we come back to we've done it a couple of weeks ago with Scottish players, young players coming through. Usually there's 1 or 2. Maybe Josh Doig, maybe a year or 2 years ago. There was guys like that. Lewis Ferguson coming through. There's guys like that were playing every week and doing really well. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one really that's standing out. A young player that's standing out. You go, he's definitely.
And
one of them.
What about Aberdeen, Leighton Clarkson?
Yeah, he's been good. Yeah, he's been good. Young boy on loan from Liverpool.
And it's not been that long ago that the young player used to win the big one as well.
Yeah.
No, it used to be Drill. No, if they won the young, they were that good that they would win the main one as well. But that hasn't happened. So yeah, I'm struggling for the young player one. There's nobody actually, as Tam says, jumps out at you and goes, it needs to be him.
And I think the worrying thing as well is we're not naming Scottish players here either. They're not Scottish young players that are coming through the ranks. It's difficult to pick, but I think Manager of the Year probably you would think would go to Ange Postecoglou. Yeah.
Well, everybody's got a reason of how they vote for that, and the thing that always comes to the front is budgets. You know, that a lot of people would say, oh, he's got the budget that's better than everybody else. He should be winning this and he should be winning that. But at the end of the day, for me, you know, that it's winning trophies that for me is the manager of the year. I mean, a lot of people will say, you know, the Motherwell manager's done particularly well with the budget he's got. So it's a difficult one. It's all the managers vote for that, don't they? All the managers down the divisions vote for the big one. So sometimes you get a moment when people think, oh, it's not all about the trophies you win, it's what you've done in the year, you know, and until Livingston blew up, you know, David Martindale would have been up there with people saying, oh, he's done a fantastic job. So, but at the end of the day, for me, it's the Celtic manager.
Yes, there's absolutely no question for me. There's absolutely no argument, in my opinion, that it's got to be Ange Postecoglou. I think David Martindale got top 6 and pushed for Europe, then possibly him back.
Is it a case for Stephen Robinson then? Top 6 for the first time?
Top six, yeah, it's a great achievement, but not for manager of the year. Not for manager of the year for me. I think it's got to be Ange Postecoglou. I look at the other divisions, you know, Dundee, Queen's Park, you know, Fone Coyle wins the league, maybe him. Dunfermline had a big budget, you would expect him to be up there. And still in Albion, so no.
Darren Young, no?
No, I'm not going to give him because he slapped me the other day, said I was on the bench at Parkhead, so the Dazzler's getting nothing. Hope he's not even in the nomination.
Hugh Scott in the comments saying you missed out Josh Campbell as a potential shout for young players.
Yes, yeah, Josh Campbell. He's been off the boil a wee bit over the last couple of weeks. He's actually dropped out the team, but you know, from a period of time over a few months, he was excellent. So yes, Josh Campbell, I think, will be definitely in the top 4. Apart from that, you know,
the Motherwell fullback.
Max Johnson, I think because he was out on loan although it's for all divisions though, so if he played well for Cove Rangers as well, he could be a good shout. But yeah, later in the week or next week, whenever it is that the Premiership and Young Player of the Year, Manager of the Year is all announced, the nominations, once they're announced, we'll discuss that in more detail. Now, Ruffy, you just made the point that you think had Livingston not fallen off, David Martindale could have been in with a shout. Well, I was out at the Tony Mac this morning speaking to David Martindale. There was kind of less said as such specifically on the game against
a bit of brass kicking back there, if you know.
I was like, no, it's not. After nearly break your ankle,
I'd been back, so I'd been back, and we'd done the Livingston Ross County game at the weekend after the filming. He comes in to do the post match. They've just won the game 2-1 or 3-1, massive result in the race for top 6. And he comes in, everyone's waiting to speak to him, a room full of journalists, and he goes, "Wee man, get out! You're not allowed back here." And I'm like, what's going on? He proceeds to spend the next 5 minutes describing frame by frame, detail by detail, me tripping over that cone to every other journalist in Scotland, and then wouldn't shut up about it. And then anytime I asked him a question, he was like, "Oh, you can't ask that. You don't know anything about football and all the rest of it." Anyway, it was grand this morning. He was in fine form as usual, and this morning he was actually talking about a potential league restructuring.
It would be huge, but I think that would be a worthwhile sacrifice, and we're sitting here with not a lot of money at all, budget getting cut next year, and I think that we would be willing to make that sacrifice. I'm going to get a phone call when I come off here, John and Robert on the phone, boardroom. But if somebody said to me, Davey, you would need to sacrifice another £100,000 out of your budget because you're going to lose an Old Firm game potentially, but would that be beneficial to Livingston Football Club and Scottish football? I think it would, having a bigger Premier League.
Ruffy,
yeah.
Davey was talking about a 16 or 18 team league. He would sacrifice £100,000 for a bigger league.
Yeah, because he sat down and looked at the benefits of it. You know, the way we keep talking about, if you're not under pressure all year, you might give more players a chance, you know, and come through. You know, I wish a lot of the other teams would think the way he's thinking, you know, instead of just thinking about themselves. You know, I think the way ahead is adding 4 or 6 or whatever, because some of the teams have proved, I know Dunfermline are down a couple of divisions, but they've proved with a successful Dunfermline team, you're talking about 8, 9, 10,000, you know, crowds that I would say I'm putting Livingston into that category, that they couldn't attract that, and neither could Ross County. So teams like that down there, if they're successful and they get a chance to play in the big time, you know, would enhance the league. You know, I think it'd be much, much better.
Tam, should we have a bigger league?
Oh, 100%. You know, I've been speaking about this for a few years now. I think that there's a number of reasons for that. Obviously, one Ruffy touched on there is giving young players an opportunity. We know the pressure's on managers at the minute. You know, it seems to be a manager's under pressure every week. If you go 2, 3, 4 games without a win, you start to drift down the table. Social media as well, people, asking for the manager's head. I think that would give a little bit more breathing space to managers, and it would let them maybe blood a few more young players. I think this season is probably the worst in a long time statistically that young players have not had a chance, because I'll use Hibs for an example. Hibs have had a great season youth. They played Dortmund in the youth setup. They've won the reserves. I think it's very difficult for Lee Johnson to throw 2 or 3 of them in when basically he's under pressure. If they don't win a game or win a couple of games, he's out the job. So it's difficult for him to throw them in. So I think that would give a little bit more leeway. And Ruffy's right. There's big clubs, can't get in the league. Falkirk and Dunfermline for 2. Who should be in our league. Dundee's another one. So I think if it was a 16-team league, you play everybody twice. I think it would give more leeway, for players to flourish under a manager, and more young players getting opportunities. Because, as I said, this season I've been really disappointed with the lack of young players, Scottish young players that have come through and had an opportunity in Scottish football in the top league.
Yeah, so Davey makes a point that they could actually lose £100,000, but do you think in the grand scheme of things it would be to the benefit of Livingston, because they may, stay in the league longer?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If there's more teams in the league, he's got a better chance of staying in the league. Yeah. Because if he drops out of that league, you're talking about £1 million. So you've got to say to yourself, well, we might lose 100,000, but there's a chance if we don't. If they keep the leagues the same, there might be, he's already said his budget's going to be cut next year, he's losing all his players. He could be the team next year that's dropping out, and he could be the team that's losing the £1 million. So he's no daft. He's saying, look, why don't we take the 100,000 hit, if we can get it round the table. But it's getting round the table. A lot of them are just looking after themselves, because they know the hit as well that's coming if they drop it as well. So as long as they're middle of the table or not in any pressure, they're just going to keep voting for the same.
I think teams and managers and fans can get stale as well when you're playing the same team all the time. I was obviously, when I played in the Premier League, it was 12 teams as well. And sometimes when I was at Hibs, you play Livingston 3 times, maybe getting the split, playing 4 times, you play them in a cup 5 times. And the fans get sick of it as well. The same teams, same players. With a 16-team league, for example, play each other twice. You're going to different grounds. You're seeing different teams, different players. And I think it stops a wee bit of boredom setting in with the players as well, rather than playing against the same players every week. So there's so many benefits, in my opinion, of a bigger league. And the only downside is for teams like Livingston, who would lose money, or Ross County. But if they're prepared to sacrifice that money, and I don't see any reason why we can't have a bigger league now.
And do you think that the split just now amplifies that even further? Because you were talking about the pressure of managers and how they're under pressure all season. How tight it was with the top 6 and bottom 6. I mean, there's still 5 games to go. If that was left completely open, I know it doesn't work with the current number of teams. Do you think the fact that there is a split with 5 games still left in the season heightens that pressure even more?
Yeah, it does, because you know you've got to get in that top 6. If you're a Hibs or a Hearts or an Aberdeen, you've got to get in that top 6. If you don't get in that, you're probably going to get sacked as a manager. So all those teams have made it this season. But if Hibs never get in the top 6, Lee Johnson, in my opinion, would get sacked. So it does heighten it. And you've got to get your bigger club or a bigger budget. You've got to try and get into that top 6, because financially it's massive. Ruffy knows more than me. When Partick Thistle were in there, if you get into that top 6, guaranteed another game against Celtic and Rangers, plus the league placing money, you're getting plenty of money. So it could be the difference between keeping 3 or 4 of your better players and having to let them go on a free. So no, it does, but I genuinely think a bigger league is, I think a lot of supporters would be desperate for a bigger league as well, to be honest. And I think that the 12-team top league is it's stale now. And as I said, the pressures that the managers are under
I saw Aberdeen coming out saying they want to rectify the booking ruling, the challenging it, and somebody else is talking about something else, and talk about the main thing, talk about the thing that's going to survive, the football, and that is the league. Getting around a table and talking about stupid wee things like that, I know they need to be changed or rectified, but the main things are the ones that we're talking about just now, getting young players into teams, and making it a better league, make it more competitive, get the crowds back in again, because I think it would be more exciting with more teams in it.
Ruffy, with the perfect opportunity to do it in COVID.
Yeah.
To save Hearts and Partick. There was a perfect opportunity to do it if the clubs could all agree, to maybe add two teams, put 2 teams up and not send Hearts down. and they all squabbled and Hearts ended up getting relegated. So they had the opportunity to do it a couple of years ago, and hopefully they'll get the opportunity to do it again.
Roughly, do you think though in that situation they're almost at the mercy of the TV companies as well, because just now the current deal allows for a guaranteed 4 Old Firm matches a season, which we know are the big money makers. Is it time for them to just think, we'll take the hit on this financially for the betterment of the league for the future?
You would like to think that would be the case, that I'm sure Rangers and Celtic supporters love playing each other, but I'm sure they would sacrifice it as well. I don't know what the positives would be for them, but they're the ones that call the shots, and they're the ones that determine what the TV wants. They want them, but they're not. We keep talking about the Atlantic League, and there might be a chance that they might be going to that, so you have to get around the table and stop thinking about just yourselves, and think of the collective, and then we can move on.
Yeah. Speaking about Sky and the TV deals and similar associated topics, I was also speaking to David Martindale this morning about the fact that Sky won't be showing any of the bottom 6 fixtures. That's caused a big stir in social media. A lot of people not happy that none of the bottom 6 matches will be shown. But as Livingston manager, David Martindale says he completely understands why.
You're looking at shareholders potentially based in London making decisions, saying are we going to lose £150,000 by showing Livingston, Dundee United, Livingston, Motherwell, because potentially that's where it comes down to. And I think it would be bad business decisions from the shareholders, these people that make these decisions, if they were choose to do that.
Tam, should there be an obligation for these companies to feel like they should show the bottom 6, or as Davey says, if it's going to cost 150 grand to show a game between Livingston and St Johnstone that's not going to get much traction, should they well within their right just to bin it off?
I think it's difficult at the start of the season when you're arranging the games. You want to get the top 6 games, and you're thinking European games and maybe a league decider. No one knows if it's going to be a last game decider to get relegated. So I think it's difficult to plan ahead for that. It could be this season, but it could be Ross County could be down before then, and there could be nothing to play for in the bottom 6. So I think he's right there. I think you've got to concentrate on the top end of the league. And if there's a relegation decider, so be it. It's not going to be on the TV, but the television companies are no mind readers. They can't, predict into the future. So no, I think that they've got to concentrate on the top 6, maybe the race for Europe and obviously Celtic and Rangers.
But they're not even doing the Hibs Hearts game. That's not scheduled to be on the telly, and that should be on the telly.
Yeah, I think in their defence though, Sky can only go to a certain amount of ground a certain amount of time, so it's difficult with the fixture plan and stuff like that. But do you think then the clubs have got to get together and say, hey, let's actually sell all of the matches to allow Sky the opportunity to broadcast with free rein or unrestricted? That was put to the table before, but the clubs actually rejected that. They don't want to sell all of the matches.
No, but that's what we're talking about in this whole discussion. They've all got to get around the table and think about the best for everybody, not just the individuals, and that's what's been happening for the last 4, 5, 6 years. The voting system has to be changed as well. You can't pass anything through because the voting system's all wrong as well. So it'd be great if they all could get around the table and start looking at these things instead of talking about let's have a Colts league, and let's vote that through and let's vote that. Concentrate on things that's the better for everybody rather than the individual, because the Colt League, all they're doing is thinking about their own young players.
What do you think the solution is to this, Tam? Would you like to see all games televised, less games televised, more games televised? How do we fix this?
I think it's difficult. Listen, I think you need to have an in-depth, knowledge of Sky and how they work out the games and all that stuff. But yeah, I think the clubs were allowed this season to show a certain amount of games pay-per-view, and I think maybe the Hibs Hearts game, the last one. Yeah,
they're still doing it. Yeah,
I think so. So Sky gave the clubs a wee bit of grace in terms of that,
and that's why the kick-off time has changed as well.
Yeah, kick-off times have changed. So listen, clubs will make money by doing that. Big games pay-per-view, but. Listen, I don't think we get a great deal in terms of Sky. I think when you look at other leagues around the world, comparative to us, Norway, Sweden, countries like that, their TV deal is massively more than ours. I think they're concentrating wholly on English football. I think we're a wee bit of an afterthought. So, but until an Amazon, an Apple, somebody comes up and actually puts it up to Sky and says we want Scottish football, then Sky are holding all the aces because nobody else has got the power, to put the money down and say, listen, we're going to challenge you. BT Sport had an opportunity to do it, obviously. and they pulled out of it. So Sky were left, you know, and they were calling the shots, and they could dictate to Scottish clubs, this is what you're getting, you know, and this is the deal, because there's no other deal on the table. So until, as I said, there's a rival for Sky in terms of a big company, then I think they're going to always call the tune Scottish football.
Once we get our 16 team or 18 team league, we'll be absolutely flying. Yeah. Everyone will want a bit of that. Speaking of the kind of lower teams, and some teams feeling a bit hard done by Ruffy today. It was Inverness were offered 10,000 tickets for the cup final at Hampden and all. The gaffer last week was suggesting they could take 15 or 20. Do you think that they'll be a little bit disappointed with that number?
Yeah, they probably will. They probably will. I think they'll know themselves. I know there was 4,000 or something like the semi-final. They'll know, you know, as soon as they put it on, who all wants to go. They'll get a figure. And they'll know they're in about it. I would like to think if they don't get 10,000, they hand it back. You know, but if they get more, as long as it's in a reasonable amount more, and Celtic do have the bigger crowd, you know, they filled the stadium half the stadium at the semi-final, so you would think they should have a wee bit of preference in this one, you know, but I think Inverness should be allowed to sell what they can sell, but in a limited time, the Celtic supporters get their fair share as well.
Tam, I heard some Cali fans on Twitter calling for an exact 50-50 split no matter what, so even if Inverness don't sell all of their tickets, the tickets then shouldn't be given to Celtic. Do you think that's wrong to have empty seats at Hampden, or are they entitled to be in Hampden?
No, I think it's wrong. I think that I totally agree with Ruffy. I think that Inverness should get 10,000. You know, they've got a time frame to sell those tickets. If they sell them, maybe get another block of 2,000, you know, and they can keep selling them. If not, they hand them back to Celtic, because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's great for your game to see empty seats first and foremost. To a flagship cup final, you know, players, people tune in all over the world and they're seeing empty seats. You know, and Celtic fans who have been at the game, you know, at games all season, followed the club home and away, don't get a ticket for the game. So I think if Inverness don't sell their share, they should be passed over to Celtic and I'm sure they would, as Ruffy said the other day, they could sell the gate, you know, twice over. But no, I think they should get given to Celtic if they can't sell them.
So if that happens, Ruffy, you could have 40,000 Celtic fans there for a treble party. That'll be some occasion there.
Certainly will, you know. But the Inverness boys will enjoy it as well. There's not a lot of them will have played in that kind of, you know, day. You know, the stadium full and everything that goes with it. So it's not going to affect Inverness. I think the good thing about it is, from the Celtic point of view, that there is more supporters going to get a chance to go to a cup final than would be if it was, say, Rangers Celtic. You know, so the good thing about that, as Tam says, the stadium has to be full. It has to be a tremendous spectacle for people to think that our football is going in the right direction, because you don't want empty stadiums.
Moving on to the other half of the old firm at Rangers, because there's been loads of change as of late. Sporting director Ross Wilson leaving, Douglas Park, the chairman, leaving, and then now yesterday academy director Craig Mulholland leaving the club, as well as director of finance Andrew Dixon leaving today. We can read a statement from Craig Mulholland, the departing academy director, that will be on screen for you just now. It reads, "I have loved my 20 years working at the club that I had grown up with, and in particular the last 8 leading our academy, B team and women's teams. However, in all leadership positions, sometimes knowing when the right time to move on is as important as deciding which opportunities to take. My successor will inherit some fantastic people working passionately to deliver on a clear strategic vision underpinned by strong processes and modern innovative methodology. They will also inherit some outstanding young talents, which will lead to an exciting future for the club and the academy over the next few years. I'm immensely proud of all we have achieved, and I would like to thank John, Stuart, James and all of the current and previous board members for their fantastic support, and wish Michael and his staff the very best for the future. Above all, I would like to thank each and every one of the young players who drive our motivation and energy every single day." Ruffy, Andrew Dixon leaving, the director of finance, been at the club for 30 years. Craig Mulholland leaving, Stuart Robertson, Ross Wilson, Douglas Park. Seems to be a complete overhaul under John Bennett at Rangers. But why? Why do you think he's doing it?
I think like all clubs, you know, need a change, you know, and obviously they know more that's happening behind the scenes than we do. You know, they're in the know, they have meetings day to day, you know, and they'll decide that certain parts of the club have to move on, and there comes a time when they have to say who's going to go and who's not going to go, you know, and at this moment in time there seems to be a complete restructuring behind the scenes at Rangers. I'm sure the fans will be partially happy with that, you know, because a lot of them are unhappy the way they think the club is going.
Do you think the fans influenced it with, you know, there was the
I don't think
protests, the banners
I don't think they influenced these two, but the other two they have most definitely influenced, you know, to move on. So it's a restructuring, you know, it'll be interesting to see. I think other things will come out in the next month, you know, before the end of the season. I think there'll be people, you know, maybe coming in, new investors, you know, people coming into new positions. And the only worrying thing I've got for Rangers is Dave King seems to be still hovering about, you know, with a large amount of shares, you know, and I think everybody's waiting to see, you know, what he's going to be doing with them. And you never know, there might be another consortium out there who might want to take or talk to the board, because we all keep talking about investment, we all keep talking about they need a lot of money, you know, to challenge Celtic, so that might be the route they have to go down. So all these things that are happening behind the scenes are just, for me, look as if they're going in that direction.
Yeah. Would you agree, do you think that with all of these changes at the club, they're maybe prepping for a change of ownership soon?
Possibly. I don't think a lot of Rangers fans will be disappointed with the changes. I think when you look at Rangers over the last 18 months, you know, apart from the European run, you know, it's not been good enough. So I think that the Rangers supporters will be happy that there's maybe fresh blood coming into the club, fresh set of eyes, whatever. I think in terms of Mulholland leaving, I think that Patterson, off the top of my head, is maybe the only one that we've sold for big money in the last 10 years.
Directly from the academy?
From the academy, I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, well,
so
Gilmore went for a development fee.
Gilmore went, so you know, I think if you're a Rangers supporter, you'd be expecting more. You'd be expecting more from a top-notch academy and a great setup, you know, up at Murray Park. And listen, it's I just don't think there's enough young players coming through at Rangers, and they are starting to buy players from other clubs, which I always thought was weird. They're buying people from Motherwell and Hibs and teams like that, and teams down south. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that the guys that are bringing through are maybe not quite up to scratch? I don't know. So I can understand why there's been a change at that level, at the youth level at Rangers. So I do think change was needed at Rangers, and I don't think the Rangers fans will be disappointed that John Bennett seems to be clearing decks.
Yeah, just that point about the youth players coming through, there's not that many. Do you think now that Rangers are stuck to second, won't finish third, can't finish first unless something ridiculous happens? Alex Lowry, Adam Devine, Leon King, boys like that, do you think they should now get a chance in the final few games to prove their worth? Because there's a lot of players playing for Rangers just now who aren't going to be there next season, but these boys will, and they could be the future.
Yep, I think they've got. I think if Michael Beale really believes in them, I think he'll play them between now and the end of the season. If he doesn't, I don't think you'll see them at Rangers next year. Alex Lowry, Leon King, Devine, I think he's got to play them now. I think if he believes that they're going to be Rangers players going forward, I think he'll give them a few games before now at the end of the season, because as you said, there's nothing to lose really, and he's got to know if they can handle it. If they can handle playing 2 or 3 games, they can handle, you know, big expectant crowds at Ibrox. So I would play them. As I said, I think there'll be massive changes at Rangers in the summer. So if Michael Beale really believes that these 2 or 3 young boys are going to be good enough to play for Rangers, then I think he'll play them. If he doesn't play them now, between now and the end of the season, the same with the goalkeeper, is it McCrory? If he doesn't play these guys between now and the end of the season, I don't see them having a future at Rangers.
Buffy, would you agree? Do you think?
Yeah, he has to say, well, particularly McCrory. Yeah. You know, I think he does like what he sees in McCrory at training. I know he was injured there for a wee while, but he has questioned, you know, is he going to step up and be a number one eventually? I think everybody thought he had it in him. You know, Alan McGregor thinks very highly of him as well, but you're not going to know unless, as Tam says, unless you throw him in. You know, and I now, in particular in him, I think the boy Devine will get a shout. Yeah, but from me, if Alan McGregor isn't signing another contract and he's going to go, I would have McCrory in from this game right to the end of the season. You've got to see what he can do if he can handle it, and that's the only time you're going to see him.
There's lots of changes, we've discussed them already at boardroom level, on field, off field, everywhere at Ibrox that there'll be changes. But is it important to just still have a bit of continuity, because there is so many people leaving? Is that going to be important in this process of transition?
I think if you look at the 11, you know, I think we discussed it the other day. If you look at the 11, the core of that will still be there. You know, I think the 3, the back 4 will still be there. The two new boys in midfield will still be there. and a couple of the boys for up front, you know, but that is, I would say, half the team, half the 11 will be there, you know, so, but the ones that are coming in need to be the ones that are going to fill these spaces. They can't be sitting on the bench. You know, you have to identify players who are going to go in and handle what it's like to play for Rangers and Celtic, because it's completely different, you know, if you're playing with Hibs and Hearts and, you know, these kind of teams in Aberdeen and that. The demands that are on you, and I don't care where these players are coming from in England, whoever they're playing with, Norwich or Swansea or whoever, they'll never ever experience what's going to happen to them when they pull on that red Rangers jersey. The pressure every week is colossal, that you've got to win every game, and so a lot of players can't handle that. You know, so you've got to identify players that you think will be able to do that as well as their ability.
We know plenty of changes due this summer at Ibrox, but maybe not so many up at Pittodrie, because two players that are rumoured to be leaving, Tam, Duke and Miofsky, fantastic season, everyone's loving them, but it's been said by Alan Burrows today that they're going to be a difficult club to deal with if anyone wants to come in and take those two boys away. 16 goals each, I believe, this season. Do you think they could attract interest and real interest from elsewhere to take them away if they're still contracted until 2025?
Yeah, I think Duke in particular, who's a bit younger than Miofsky, I think that he's someone who Aberdeen will be hoping to get big money for. I don't think that Aberdeen, I think they have traditionally always been quite a difficult club to deal with. I think McKenna was one. They knocked back a massive amount of money for him, I think from Aston Villa. So I think they'll be looking for £2 or £3 million for Duke, at least. I think they'll be looking for big money for him. And Miofsky's obviously a little bit older, but he's an international player, maybe a couple of million for him. So I think they want to keep them, but at the end of the day, I think if they're getting a sniff of England, maybe the English Championship or English Premier League, they'll be saying to their agent they want to leave, and Aberdeen will then try and negotiate the biggest deal that they can. But both have been brilliant for Aberdeen this season, and Jim Goodwin's obviously took a bit of slack and lost his job, but he done well bringing they two into the club.
Could Aberdeen potentially get even more for them if they hold on to them? Because you always think, oh, when do you cash in? But if Aberdeen looks like they're going to be playing in the Europa League next season or Europa Conference League, depending on how the qualifiers go, could this be a case of, you know what, we'll keep them for another season? If they bang in 4 or 5 goals against, I mean, you could be playing Liverpool in the Europa League. Is that what they're weighing up just now, to think, when do we cash in the chips?
I think it helps them. It will help them massively if Aberdeen finish third. I think they're going to be guaranteed £4 or £5 million. European football, group stage football, I think that's great for the players. I think it's great for the manager, Barry Robson, to say, listen boys, just one more season, even 6 months, you know, go and play in Europe, go and, you know, you get yourself a bigger move. Maybe there's a Millwall or somebody like that interested in you. By the way, you go and score 2 or 3 goals, as you said, in the Conference League or the Europa League, and you might get a Premier League club. So I think that will help them massively, and it takes the pressure off of Aberdeen in terms of finances. You know, somebody says there's £3 million for Duke, and they go tempted to take that, but you're getting £4 or £5 million from the European run. You go, listen, we'll knock that back and gamble. We'll get more. So yeah, I think you're right. I think he'll try and entice them if Aberdeen get European football.
Should Rangers or Celtic be looking at these players?
I wouldn't. Well,
I think Rangers should be looking at Duke.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think Celtic should. I don't think he'd play for Celtic.
No, I don't think he'd play with Celtic.
I look at what Rangers have got now up front. Yeah. I think Duke plays for Rangers.
Yeah, but it depends what Rangers are going to go for. You know, I think the Rangers supporters will be hoping we're going to go for somebody better than a Duke.
Yeah.
But if you look at current,
so he's a fringe player for me. You know, if you go there, he's another Wright. He's on the bench. You know, he's another Sakala who'll come on and do something. If that's in the price range that you're in and looking at, you know, go for him. But I don't think Rangers would want to spend £2 million in Duke. But I mean, I think the Rangers supporters will be wanting better than that. Yeah,
but the current squad, so the wide players that Rangers have available just now, Kent, Sakala, Matondo, right? Where does Duke rank amongst them?
Well, it's a hard one to say because he's not been tested. As I said, playing with Rangers and Celtic is a big ask. You know, you don't know if the guy is the kind of guy that would handle that kind of pressure if he's not playing well, or just if the team's not playing well, because we've seen it on numerous occasions that a lot of Rangers players, when it's not going well, they sort of just hide a wee bit and can't handle the pressure. I don't know like the kind of guy he is, but it'd certainly be a wee bit of a risk, I would think, you know, spending £2 million on them.
Would Duke start for Rangers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now. But I do get where Ruffy's coming from. I think if you're a Rangers fan, you're looking to go and you're looking for better than Duke. No disrespect to him, I think he's a very good player. I think he'd play for Rangers now, you know, in this team, but I think there's going to be a total overhaul at Rangers. I think there's going to be maybe one player left, Cholak. I think Morelos will be away, Kent will be away. I think Matondo will be away. Wright's obviously been told he can go. So I think that Rangers need to sign 3 or 4 wingers and maybe 2 strikers. Honestly, I think they need 4 or 5 forward players. So I think that Duke, if you get him for the right amount of money, he's a young player, he's done really well at Aberdeen, he knows the league. I think if you can get him for 1.5 million, 2 million, the Aberdeen fans will be throwing things at the telly in terms of that kind of.
I think you got to pay a little bit more for him.
You have to pay more than that, but I'm just for talking's sake, you know, and you maybe get him for £2 million, then I think it'd be a good signing for Rangers. But I think Aberdeen would be looking for 3 or 4 million for him.
Yeah, we could fill a show with potential Rangers transfer targets, and I'm sure at some point in pre-season we will have plenty of time to discuss all of them. But I want to talk about a match last night, Arsenal versus Chelsea. Roughly Arsenal winning the match 3-1. We'll hear from Arteta in a minute, but do you think Arsenal have any chance still of winning the Premier League title?
There's always a chance, but
they are top of the league.
I'm looking at the fixtures list, and I think Man City have got the better run in. They'll get, on paper, they'll get the easiest run in the form that they're on and the goals that they're scoring. You can't see them. You can't see them slipping up. Not at this particular time. I think, unfortunately, it was a good result Arsenal got last night, but I think they've just been shedding points recently. But I hope it goes to the wire because it's really exciting. Remember the year with Man City and that game when it
Aguero!
Game, yeah.
I'm sure every neutral would want that sort of a scenario to happen again.
Last year's one was crazy as well, yeah.
Man City were 2-0 down, 1-0, 2-0 down at Villa.
To Aston Villa, yeah. And then
come back and won it.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. Do you think City will win it again though?
Yeah, I think Man City win the treble this year. I really do. I know
Champions League as well?
Yeah, Real Madrid got beat again last night. They went off the boil. You know, Man City, they've got Man United, possibly Man United in the final. I think they'll win the league, and they've got, in my opinion, Real Madrid to beat. I think they'll beat the 2 Milan clubs with their eyes shut. So I'd be fairly confident that Man City win the lot this year.
Yeah, it's not over though. We weren't speaking to, but we can hear from Mikel Arteta, who believes that was a must-win game if they have any hope of still winning the league.
I don't have a number, but personally a lot, because if we want to have any chance to win this league, we had to win today. And we've done it, and it was something there. We want to be back on top after tonight. We are, and our job was done today, and there's still 4 more to do.
It's funny how he's changed his tune within a week, because when he said we played with Man City, if we don't win tonight, it doesn't mean we're not going to win the league. But now that is a really important game. So they're all important games. You've got to win them, you know. But it'll be interesting. I think they've had a good season, you know, and obviously they're going to be in Champions League.
Arsenal are away to Newcastle at the weekend.
They are, and that killed their season last year in the whole period.
Newcastle away from home.
No,
Newcastle are flying.
No. On the flip of that, their opponent yesterday, roughly Chelsea, 6 defeats in a row. Lampard's lost every game. They've only scored twice, conceded 14 in that time. What's going on at Chelsea just now?
Well, it might be the scenario that I'm talking about with Rangers and Celtic. They bought in a lot of young players, really quality young players. But when you're at a team like Chelsea, you've got to win every week as well. Maybe they're just too young. They haven't learnt, what it's like to be at a team like Chelsea. And I remember seeing Potter doing an interview saying that the owners had said to him, "Look, we're going to buy in big, but we're going to buy in young. It's going to be a progression. We're going to be maybe 2 or 3 years before they all come to fruition, but obviously he's not going to be there in 2 or 3 years. So sometimes you take that gamble, you say, right, but you need owners who are going to say, right, okay, it's not going well this year, don't panic. Let's see them bedding in, let's see them getting better year on year, but it's not this year anyway, because they've been absolutely dreadful.
We can hear from Chelsea manager Frank Lampard, who's refusing to pass the blame onto his players.
I want to be quite clear about this. It's not a case. I know the casual answer to the first half can be that the players didn't have pride or they didn't care enough. All these things, the players certainly do. I'm absolutely not questioning the players as lads, but from being good lads to transferring it onto the pitch, you don't need to be aggressive bloke through the week to be an aggressive player when you go on the pitch. That has to be something that you do.
Tam, I'm 9 points above the relegation zone. They've got 5 games left. The final 3 games, they play City, United and is it Newcastle, I think, in their final 3 games. If they don't pick anything up in their next 2, could we actually be talking about Chelsea in a relegation fight?
I think they're maybe just a couple of points clear it. I think that they're on 39 points.
39. Usually you need the magic 40.
I think they'll get a point for somewhere over the next couple of weeks, but they should have just stuck with Potter. You know, I don't understand it, but the owner at Chelsea seems to be calling the shots. You know, and I think Lampard about it in the summer. They're talking about Pochettino taking it. I cannot for the life of me see why Pochettino would take that job unless he's just wanting a massive payoff and he gets billeted. Which is
that's not bad. I would take it as well, to be fair. But Lampard, he'll be away in the summer, but we know that he was only taking this on an interim basis. But could he be away sooner than that, Ruffy? We saw Spurs get rid of their interim manager and replace him with another interim manager. They've lost 6 on the spin. If the owners start to get worried that there is maybe a slight chance of relegation, could they actually get rid of him as soon as next week or the week after?
Well, I wouldn't think so, no. I mean, they brought him in because who he is, what he means to the club. Okay, it's not working for him, but it's not been working for them all year, and unfortunately Sam Allardyce has went somewhere else, so he's not available.
Yeah, well, that brings me perfectly on to the next point. You've been reading the notes. The big news today that Sam Allardyce is taking over at Leeds United to replace Javi Gracia. 4 games, Tam. They're not in the relegation zone just now, so technically could lose all his games and actually still stay up. Is it a strange call with 4 games to go to bring in Big Sam?
Absolute mental. Why are they sacking this? I mean, I was actually speaking to a couple of my pals about it last night. The guy Javi Garcia took over when Leeds were in 17th. They're now still in 17th, right? They're not in the relegation zone and he's get chopped. I mean, he's doing his job. He's keeping them out the bottom 3. Big Sam comes in. I think they're talking about he's getting 500 grand between now and the end of the season. He's getting 2.5 million if he keeps them up. So Big Sam's in there. He'll be trying like a bear to try and get that cash.
Oh, he'll not be short of cash.
Yeah, but I was looking at Leeds' fixtures, and they will need help from other teams. They've got Man City, Newcastle, Spurs, and I think Bournemouth away or something. And so West Ham maybe, I think it was. So I don't see them picking up many points, Leeds. And see teams that sack 2 managers in one season, I hope they get relegated. So Southampton for me, hope they get relegated. I hope they get relegated. Leeds, and who's other? There's another club down there who's sacked a couple of managers. I hope West Ham stay up. I hope Nottingham Forest stay up because they've stuck with that guy. Yeah. And I want to see the teams that are stuck with their managers, because that guy was in the job for 11 games. That guy Garcia at Leeds, and he's getting chopped, and they're still in the same place they were sitting. It's mental.
Do you think they will stay up? Yes.
No, I think they'll down Leeds.
Ruffy?
Tight. It's a tight shout. You know, obviously the fixture lists are going to be really, really important, and you know, I've always got a soft spot for Leeds because of the Scottish connection, the way we back with Bremen and Joe Jordan and Mick Gordon. So no, I hope Leeds stay up.
Yeah, it's Big Sam the man to do that then?
He's done it before. I mean, that's why they go to these people, because they think it's going to happen all the time. So I mean, he is good to listen to.
4 games he's got.
Well, you said he's done it before, and the quiz question today, we'll revert back to the quiz question, was how many Premier League clubs has Sam Allardyce managed?
I counted 8.
Oh, 7, I said.
We can ask our viewers to take their guesses as well. Was it 7? 8? 7? It's 9. 9.
Oh,
you were close.
I forgot this one.
So wait. Can you name them? Name them, right?
Yes, Bolton.
Yep.
West Ham.
Yep.
Newcastle.
Yep. I'll hide this for you.
Bolton, West Ham, Newcastle, West Brom.
Yep.
Everton.
Yep.
Leeds.
Yep.
Newcastle. I say them.
You said them. 3 to get.
3 Premier League teams.
Yes.
Blackburn.
Yes. 2 more. Come on.
Not Fulham.
Not Fulham. 5. 4. Sunderland and Palace is what you missed. So it's 9 clubs: Bolton, Newcastle, Blackburn, West Ham, Sunderland, Crystal Palace, Everton, West Brom, Leeds.
Yeah. Played against.
He only went down with one of them.
Played against him when he was at Bolton, centre half. Centre half at Bolton. Partick Thistle played Bolton in an Anglo-Scottish Cup, and he was the captain, centre half.
Was he any good?
Yeah, he was a good big player, good big centre half. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed.
You want to fight me? I'm going to give you a backhander.
No.
Anyway.
You're terrible. Anyway, that concludes our football show today. For Wednesday, we'll be back tomorrow again at 4 p.m. Peter will be back. He's back from his top secret mission that we can't tell anybody about. So lucky for you viewers, you won't have to put up with me tomorrow. See you all at 4 tomorrow.